Okay, what slide is this? Okay, slide 4.
We good? Yep, this is slide 4, factors of 12. So I can do 1 times 12, or I can do 2 times 6, or I can do 3 times 4, right? Just factors of 12. Factors of 18, same thing. Then for the greatest common factor, I'm looking for the thing that's the same. So here, that's the 6 and the 6. That's the biggest number that will divide both into 12 and 18. Remember greatest common factor? Usually this causes some tears when you first learn it in elementary school, middle school. I'm just saying usually it does. Exponents just mean I'm multiplying that thing by that number, right? So a to the 5th power is 5a's, a to the 3rd power is 3a's. So my lowest exponent is my greatest common factor, a to the 3rd, because that's 3a's multiplied together. You always want to take your lowest common exponent. So let's see what it looks like over here on the side. You are not going to have to watch that 11-minute video. I think that is very excessive. But basically the question I ask myself is, what can I remove? This is why I think of it as reverse distribution. What can I remove from both of those terms? Well, I can divide them by 5a, because 5 goes into 25 and 5 goes into 15. And then if I look at those exponents, I've got a to the 2 and a to the invisible 1. The 1 is smaller than the 2, so I take out the a. That 5a comes outside. That's why it's reverse distribution. And then what's left, once I do my division, is inside the parentheses. Let's see if that makes any sense. Let's go to slide 5. Okay. Whoops. Yeah, go to slide 5. I'm not going to waste a whole lot of time on this because I think it kind of insults your intelligence a little bit, I'll be honest. So what can I divide both x to the 5th and x to the 3rd by? Well, we look at our smaller variables. So if I divide this by x to the 3rd, right? X to the 3rd. I can do x to the 3rd. And then what's left over? X2. And x to the 3rd divided by x to the 3rd is just 1, right? Thanks, Gianluca, for letting me know. What can I take out of 2x and 8y? So on the keyboard, you can go up to insert and then special. Oh, no, you can't do special characters. I just do the caret. So if I was writing on this.
Wait, is it and or plus?
I would say and just because there's an and here. Not a plus. You can do like this. The little arrow, like shift 6. That's another way to do an exponent. So if you want to do x squared, you can do this. Okay? Does that make sense? So if I divide 2x by 2 and I divide 8 by 2, the 2 is what ends up on the outside. And then 1 and what? Oh, and it's 1 what? Do I still have that x? 1x and what? What's 8 divided by 2? 4. And then I need the y. Okay. What about number 3? What can I divide both 10a to the 4 and 4 by? What's the greatest common factor? Yeah. 2 or 4?
2.
So if I divide both of those things by 2, what do I put in my box over here? So I've got the 2 that comes out, and then I definitely have 5a, and I'm just doing caret 6. So that says 5a to the 4th. That notation right there. 5a to the 4th. Because that makes the 4 the exponent. So it's just math notation. because that's the way it is. And then what's the last part?
2.
2. What about 4? What can I take out of this? 4 for sure. Any variables? K to the 5th. You want to take out that smallest exponent, right? So over here, I write the greatest common factor, 4k to the 5th. And then inside my parentheses, what's left over? Do you remember the rules for dividing exponents? So 4 and 4 cross out, and then k to the 7th divided by k to the 5th. When you divide, you really subtract. So 7 minus 5 is 2. 7 minus 5 is 2. And if you think about that, if I have 7 k's all by themselves and then divided by 5 k's, the k's cancel out and there's 2 left at the top. Right? So we'll end up with k to the 2. Oh, come on. Hey, Samuel. K to the 2. And what's over on the right-hand side? 9. And what? That's it? Or 9? K to the 5 and k to the 5 cross out. Absolutely. So that's going to be 9. You can make that box bigger or you can make your number smaller. Okay, all we're doing is taking out that greatest common factor. So what about 18x to the 5th and 42x to the 2nd? What can I divide both of those by? 3? Ah, 6. Okay. So we can divide by 6. And then what variable? X2.
Wait, is that a 6 or that's a 6, right?
It was a 3, and then we turned it into a 6 because we were like, oh, wait, you can do 6 instead of 3. Okay. So over here, our greatest common factor is 6x squared. And then what else? Once I take out that 6x squared, what's left over? 18 divided by 6 is 3. And x to the 5th divided by x squared is x to the 3rd. And then what's 42 divided by 6?
8.
7 or 8?
8. I was close. No, I was only 1 off.
I love your enthusiasm.
Almost 17. I was 42 now.
What about 12x 6 and 12x squared?
So divide by 12.
Divide by 12x. What about the 6? Just 6. Can I do a variable? You cannot. So 6 goes out, and then 2x, 1, and 2x are left over. It is a 1 because 6 divided by 6 is 1. You got to notice that those don't evaporate. 6 divided by 6 is 1. Okay. We don't have any operations in the middle of these parentheses because we didn't have any operations over here. Try the right side on your own while I take attendance. Try the right side on your own while I take attendance. Let's see what you got. Thomas, are you here and I missed you? It's not here. Who's here? Selena, Deanna, Elijah. Hey, Thomas. We are working on a factoring notebook that you can find in Schoology. So if you go into Schoology in Unit 10, we're at the very bottom in the June 8th to 17th folder, getting ready for Algebra 2, factoring. Once you get to that assignment, we are on page 5, I think. Yeah, we're doing this right side on page 5, just taking out the greatest common factor.
We're going over.
So in the first one, what's the greatest common factor? And what's left over once you take out the 6?
3.
And what? Sweet. What about the next one? 5. 5x. And what's left over? 5x plus 2. Okay. What about the third one? Number 9? 9. 9 n to the which power? 3. And what's left over? Because you've got n to the 4th and n to the 3rd, you always take the smaller exponent. So 9n to the 3rd, if I remove 9n to the 3rd from 18n to the 4th, what do I end up with? 18 divided by 9 is just n to the 1, and then minus 3, just 3?
3n.
Why n? So sometimes it's easier if you write it on a piece of paper, 9n to the 3rd power and 9n to the 3rd power. Whatever you're dividing by, that's what comes outside the parentheses. Then 18 divided by 9 is 2. That's how I got the 2. And then n to the 4th divided by n to the 3rd, you just subtract those exponents. 4 minus 3 is 1. And then 27 divided by 9 is 3, and the n to the 3rd and the n to the 3rd cancel out. That's identity property of division. Anything in the numerator and the denominator can be canceled out. What about number 10? 4 for sure. And what's inside the parentheses? Sweet. And then number 11? 3? And what's left over? Two x to the 3rd plus 2x, or just 2? Would it be 4? Okay. Minus 7. Okay. If it's easier for you, because I know this is hard on Google Slides. You're dividing everything by 3. Sometimes it's easier to write it on paper. So 6 divided by 3 is 2. And then x to the third power. 12 divided by 3 is 4. Keep the x. And then 21 divided by 3 is 7. Sometimes it helps if you give your numbers a little space to breathe too. What about this last one? This looks like crazy town. So greatest common factor is absolutely 6. What do I do with the x's? What's the smaller exponent for the x's?
The smallest is 3.
So of the x's. So you want to look at the coefficients together. 36 and 6. The biggest common factor is 6. And then look at your x's. So that's x to the 4th. And then what about the y's? Y to the 3rd. Y to the 3rd. So over here you would write 6x to the 4th, y to the 3rd. Looks a little crazy. What do you get when you do 36x to the 4, y to the 5 divided by 6, x to the 4, y to the 3? Whew. Absolutely, 6y2. And then plus what? You might need to make your box bigger. 6 divided by 6 is 1. Those cross out. So the 6's cross out. What about the x's? What's left over when I divide the x's? 1x. And then what's left over when I do the y's? Nothing. Boom. Okay. This greatest common factor reverse distribution is fundamentally the first lesson in Algebra 2. Did I give everybody a chance to do it? Erase all my crazy marks. And then here, this was... I forget what that was. X to the, was that just x?
It's broken. According to Quinlan, I don't know if
Okay.
fix your computer. But it's still sending me.
So all of your answers are on slide 7. If you missed something that we did, all the answers are on slide 7. If you want to practice this, you can go to IXL AA1 and AA2. That's in Algebra 1. So this is Algebra 1 stuff that we're just reviewing. Okay, so AA1 and AA2. Is Schoology having issues? So you might just want to write this on a piece of paper and then you can go back in and put it in. The answers to slide 5 are on slide 7. So we're going to do one more lesson. So if Schoology is not working, just grab a piece of paper. You're going to want to do this on a piece of paper anyway. Has anybody ever done X puzzles? Have you ever done these? Do you do these in Algebra 1? No? Oh my gosh, I love X puzzles. So this kind of is just a way of organizing your numbers so that factoring is easier. The question you're asking yourself is, what will multiply to 15 and add up to 8? Okay? The question is, what will multiply to 15 and add up to 8? So you make a little factor tree. 15 can be broken into 1 times 15 or 3 times 5. And 3 plus 5 is 8. So that's how these factor puzzles work. So let's come over here and see if we can solve any of them. What will multiply to 35 and add up to 12? 5 and 7. Look at that. We didn't even need to make a tree. 5 and 7. So 5 times 7 is 35, and 5 plus 7 is 12. What about negative 20 and 1? What multiplies to negative 20
We're not supposed to put 5 and 7 in.
and adds up to 1? Oh, no, you can put 5 and 7 in. It is going to be negative. Well, what are the factors of 20? We've got 1 and 20. We've got 2 and 10. Does 3 go into 20? Does 4 go into 20? 4 and 5. So we definitely need a 4 and we definitely need a 5, right? If my 1 has to be positive, my bigger number has to be positive. If my answer up here is negative, then one of these has to be negative. Okay? So we've got 5 here. We've got 7 here. We've got negative 4. We've got 5. Okay? What about 48 and 14? 8 and 6? Oh. 8 and 6. Does it matter if we do 6 and 8 or 8 and 6? It does not. 8 times 6 is 48, and 8 plus 6 is 14. And it does not matter which one comes first. What about negative 28 and negative 3?
Negative 8,
Negative 8 and positive 3. So negative 8 times positive 3.
Negative 7 and 4.
Negative 7.
And 4, not negative.
So negative 7 times 4 is negative 28. And negative 7 plus 4 is negative 3. That's absolutely correct. What about negative 9 and 0? What multiplies to negative 9 and adds up to 0? I don't know. You tell me. So if my number is 9, I can have 1 and 9. What are the other factors of 9? 3 and 3. So if I'm trying to get 0 when I add them, if we do 3 and negative 3, negative 3 times positive 3 is negative 9, because a negative times a positive is a negative, and negative 3 plus positive 3 is going to be 0. Okay, so the way these work is what multiplies to the top number and adds to the bottom number. And you want to make a factor tree. So if you start with your top number on top, whatever you're trying to multiply to, then you do your factors, 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 10, 5 and 6. Which pair of those will add up to 29? What factors of negative 30 will add up to 29? 3, 30, and negative 1. So 30 times negative 1 is negative 30, and 30 minus 1 is 29. Okay? The answers are on slide 12. Okay? If you're still confused, the process is make that T-chart and put your multiple on the top. Write all of your factors. I always start with 1 and whatever the number is. Then I try to divide by 2. Then I try to divide by 3. Then I try to divide by 4. Once your numbers get close to each other, you have all the factors. Then you just look for a pair that are only 1 apart. So that's going to be the 4 and the 5. Okay, and then you just have to figure out your pluses and minuses. And there are some rules for that. Let's look at slide 13. So slide 13 is going to give you some rules for factoring, and you might actually want to watch this video. Okay, I'm going to go through it fast, but you might want to watch this video just for some deeper understanding. You've got a quadratic formula here. The A is always the number in front of the second power term. The B is always in front of the single power term, and then the C is always the number by itself, just the constant. So ax squared plus bx plus c. If you have a quadratic formula with something that has 3 terms and a power of 2, a, b, and c always work here. Okay, so we're going to identify the a, b, and c from the quadratic formula. We're going to use a, b, and c to complete the puzzle. That top number that we multiply, we're going to take the first number and the last number, we're going to multiply them together. That middle number is going to go straight to the bottom, and then we're going to do our X puzzle. What multiplies to 32 and adds up to 12? Well, that's 8 and 4. Okay, so then we're going to take that first variable and bring it down. We're going to make that left side number into 8v, the right side number into 4v, and then bring that last number straight down. Then we're going to undistribute. We're going to find the greatest common factor of those two things and put it all back together. This is how we're going to factor these quadratics. So let's see what that looks like one at a time. You might want to do this on a piece of paper. I don't know. It might get a little crazy looking on here. But what's my A? A, we're just going to do 1. We're going to do that invisible 1 in front of it. And then the B is going to be 9, and the C is going to be 14. So in our X puzzle, we're going to do 1 times 14, and that's going to go to the top. And we're going to do 9, and that's going to go to the bottom. So what multiplies to 14 and adds up to 9? 7 and 2. 7 times 2 is 14. We multiplied to get the 14, and 7 plus 2 is 9. 7 plus 2 is 9. Okay? We're going to take this first term and this last term and bring them straight down. So m squared is going to be my first term, and 14 is going to be my last term. This side number, I'm going to put an x next to it and put it here. And this side number, I'm going to put an x next to it and I'm going to put it here. I should put m's so my variables match. What can I take out of m squared plus 7m? What can I take out of 7m squared, or m squared minus or plus 7m? Oh, why did it do that? So just underneath? No, it took it all away. Yeah, and that was Screencastify. Sorry, guys. All right, let me rewrite that. So we're going to do m squared plus 7m times 2m plus 14. Wow, this is crazy today. What can I take out? What's the greatest common factor of m squared plus 7m? M. So I take out an m, and I'm left with m plus 7. What can I take out of 2m plus 14? 2, just the 2, right? And then I'm left with m plus 7. Notice that these two terms inside the parentheses are the same, m plus 7 and m plus 7. So we're going to take the m and the positive 2 and put them together. So m plus 2 and m plus 7. These two parentheses need to match, and then the stuff that's in front, the stuff that you undistributed, goes together. Okay? Let's try the third one. What was the first thing we did in our process? So we figured out what our A, B, and C was, right? So A equals 1, and B equals 2, and C equals -3. And then we put it in our X puzzle, and what do we put in the top? 1 times -3. So we've got -3 at the top, and what went to the bottom? The 2. What multiplies to -3 and adds up to 2? -1 and 3. Okay, our beginning number comes to the beginning, our ending number comes to the end, and our middle stuff goes here. So all we're doing is reordering. This is the beginning, this is the second thing, this is the third thing, and this is the fourth thing. Make sure you keep all the right signs. So n squared minus n times 3n minus 3. So this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, and this is 4. Okay? What can I take out of n squared minus n?
N.
Just n, and what's left over?
N squared.
N squared divided by n is n, and negative n divided by n is -1. N divided by n is 1. What can I take out of 3n and -3? 3. And what's left over? -1. Because 3 divided by 3 is 1. That's the easiest thing to get wrong, is just thinking that the 3's cross out. But 3 divided by 3 is going to be 1. So notice that the stuff inside my parentheses are the same. So I keep that, n minus 1. And the stuff that's outside the parentheses, we just put together. So n and 3 becomes n plus 3. And that's our answer. 5 kicks it up a notch. I'll give you a second to make sure you grab that. That's n plus 3 times n minus 1. N plus 3 times n minus 1. So in number 5 in our X puzzle, what do I multiply and put in the top of my puzzle? 5 and 7. So 5 times 7 is 35. And what goes in the bottom of my X puzzle? And grab that negative. So that -12 goes in the bottom. So what I'm looking for is factors of 35. So on the face of this might look hard. 1 and 35, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 7. -7 and -5, absolutely. Because I've got a negative down here, I know my bigger number needs to be negative. Because I have a positive at the top, they both have to be negative. So again, we're going to put these in order. This is my first thing, this is my second thing, this is my third thing, and this is my fourth thing. So we're just going to rewrite it, putting it all back together. 5x squared minus 7x times -5x plus 7. So first term, second term, third term, fourth term, just putting it back together. Basically what you've done is split that -12 into -7 and -5. Okay. What can I take out of the 5x squared minus 7x? X. Once I take the x out, what's left over? 5x minus 7. And what can I take out over here? This one's kind of tricky. I want my parentheses to end up being 5x minus 7. So how can I turn -5x plus 7 into 5x minus 7? What do I have to take out of that? What do I have to divide by in order to change the signs? How about -1? So if I divide by -1 and I divide by -1, the signs change. So now we got to rebundle that. So I've got x minus 1, x minus 1, and 5x minus 7. 5x minus 7. Okay. Try the right side on your own. Try the right side on your own. It's x minus 1. Yeah. X minus 1 times 5x minus 7. I can? So try number 2 on your own. You might want to use a piece of paper for it. I don't know. Be careful of the signs. So everybody should be working on 2, 4, and 6.
You said about the so it's not going on. So it's N2. I wasn't paying attention. I was, but I wasn't. Oh, okay. So wait. So it's supposed to be if you squared n squared and then minus no it's plus. I haven't got the call.
Not going well?
Well, after the X, she's putting it into the thing.
Okay, so let me erase this and let's talk about it. So what did we put into the X for number 2? What goes in the top of the X? So 1 times negative 32 goes at the top. So that's definitely negative 32. Ooh. And then what goes in the bottom? Negative 4. Okay. What can I multiply to get negative 32 and add up to get positive 4? Negative 8 and positive 4. So negative 8 times 4 is negative 32, and negative 8 plus 4 is negative 4. This is your first term when you put everything back together. This is your second term. This is your third term. And this is your fourth term. So when you put it back together, you start with n squared. And then you come over here and get your second term, minus 8n. Put those in parentheses. So first term and second term together. N squared minus 8n. Then you go to the third term, 4n, and the fourth term, minus 32. Okay? So that's how you put it back together. First term, second term, third term, fourth term. You're breaking apart that middle term and just inserting this part. So now what can I take out of that first set of parentheses? N. And what's left over? N minus. And then what can I take out of the second term or the second set? 4. You know you've done it right because your parentheses match. So that parenthesis comes down and gets consolidated into 1. And then you take the n and the 4 and you put those together in the first set of parentheses. N plus 4. So, I sometimes, Kaylee, forget to put the variables in there too, like this one and this one. It's a lot of steps, and there are some easier ways to factor, but this way will work every time. So what about number 4? Huh? I do. So what about number 4? How would we start that? What goes in our X puzzle?
You do A and then B and then C. No, it's 3 and then negative 14. It's 3 times 8.
And 3 times 8 is?
24.
Okay. So what multiplies to 24 and adds up to negative 14?
Negative something.
Negative something.
Negative 8. Wait, 6.
So 24, we could do 1 and 24. We can do 2 and 12. We can do 3 and 8. We can do 4 and 6. 12 and 2? Negative 12 and negative 2? Negative times a negative is a positive. And negative 2 and negative 12 make negative 14. So this is our first term. We're going to start with that, 3x squared. This is our second term, but we got to remember to add the x to it. No, that's a 2. Yeah. That's x squared minus 2x. And then we've got our third term. And then our last term plus 8. And I can factor out the x.
I missed that part. I learned it in the next.
That happens. So these middle terms are replacing the 14. So you've got to put an x with them. So in the puzzle, we don't use the x's, but when you take them out of the puzzle, you got to add them back in. So if I distribute out my x, I need 3x minus 2. And what can I take out of negative 12x and 8? Do I want a positive 4 or negative 4? If I want to end up with 3x minus 2. If I take out the 4, positive and a positive is a positive. I want to make that a negative 4, and that's the hardest thing. If you know you want to end up with positive 3 and minus 2, positive 3 and minus 2, you got to take out a negative 4. So that's the hardest part. And then x minus 4 and 3x minus 2.
So would that be possible? Yeah, that's
Yep, x minus 4 and 3x minus 2. And in Algebra 2 next year, you'll go into more depth about how to check this to make sure it's right. Because one of the great things about algebra is you can always check it to make sure you did it right. You do not have, so that's another good thing that I talked about at the very beginning of class, but some people weren't in here yet. Because you passed your geometry SOL, no more math SOLs for the rest of your math life. You still don't need the SOL. You need the class. You still need to take and pass more math classes, but no SOLs. And you might need one student select, depending on your diploma status. Yeah, so English is going to be a reading and a writing, both 11th grade. Yeah, so next year, usually sophomores don't have to take a whole lot of SOLs. You get them all out of, most of them out of the way your freshman year and then your junior year.
How do I do number 6?
This will be the last problem of the day, I think. What goes in the top? And what goes in the bottom? So we multiply the 9 and the negative 4 to get negative 36. Watch out for that negative sign. That's where a lot of people get messed up sometimes. And then we've got a positive 9 in the bottom. So what multiplies to negative 36 and adds up to 9? 12 and negative 3. You'll notice that whatever the sign is of your adding number, that's what your biggest factor has to match. So if this was a negative 9, we'd want a negative 12. Because it's a positive 9, we want a positive 12. Then if your multiplying number, your factor is negative, you need one negative. So that's how we got positive 12 and negative 3. Then we put them all back together. This is our first term, so 9x squared. This is our second term. We got to make sure we add the x in there. Group those in parentheses. Then we go to our third term. Make sure you grab that negative sign. A lot of people miss that too. Little negative signs floating around. And then we need our last term, negative 4. What can I remove from the 9x squared and the 12x? What's the greatest common factor? 3x. So if I do 3x, what's left over? 3x plus 4. And I want to end up with a 3x plus 4. So if I know I want to end up with a 3x plus 4, what do I have to take out of the second set of parentheses? A negative 1, absolutely. All I'm trying to do is change the sign there. So if I have a negative 3x and a negative 4 and I want a positive 3x and a positive 4, I've got to take out a negative 1. So 3x minus 1 is our first set of parentheses, and then 3x plus 4 is our second set of parentheses. And I know it's a whole lot easier for me to write on the screen than it is for you guys to write on your screen. The answers are on slide 16. So if you missed it, the answers are on slide 16. And if you want to do some extra practice, It's again in algebra, double A4 and double A5. So if you're also looking for some extra credit, your grade is not what you want it to be right now. If you do in the algebra IXLs, the double A's, send me a Schoology message and let me know that you've done them and I can put them in for some extra credit, okay? At this point, this digital notebook and these IXLs are the only new grades going in the grade book. They're not going to hurt you, but they won't help you if you don't do them, okay? Questions?
No more work to it?